Hi, it's Lorna, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint a leaf. This leaf. I'm going to be painting this kind of palm fern leaf. It's just a leaf from my imagination, and I hope that you make a leaf from your imagination. Of course, it's based off of real life. This is actually a card. I made it for Father's Day. If you want to make yours into a card, just fold your watercolor paper in half. I'm using 3 different colors here. I have a chartreuse, I have a kind of a sunflower yellow, and I have an olive green. You can use either a watercolor pencil for your line art or a pencil for your line art. If you use pencil, you're going to want to erase any pencil lines you see. Watercolor pencil has the advantage of being able to just blend in with your watercolor, and you don't have to do any touch-ups or erasing. So I'll be using that today so I don't have as much cleanup. But if that's all you have is a regular pencil, please do use it. If you are using a regular pencil, make sure that you use it very lightly. So I just have a number 10 round brush. A round brush is going to be really great for what we're doing. A flat brush is not going to be as successful, but if that's all you have, you can just turn it on its side. So if you are using your round brush, you can get nice tip to tip for this particular type of leaf. You don't have to do a lot of shaping or sculpting, which is really, really nice. If you use a flat brush, you're just going to have to turn it on its side. Otherwise, you're going to have little square tips on your leaf. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to draw a leaf with my marker here. So the red is just the frame. I'm not actually going to be drawing a physical frame on my paper, but just so that you can see kind of how I go about it. So I draw a center stem line. And if you want, you can just do little loops on the side, or you can do curvy lines, or either way, I'm trying to keep it in a teardrop shape. That's the shape I want. So I'm just using green to show you a little bit of difference here. So you can just do loops if you want, all the way up. And the shape that I've drawn on the outside is going to keep it so that I go from biggest to smallest, because that's what fits. So I'm just going from end to end. If you want to draw a frame on there, just do it very lightly in pencil and then erase it later. So you could just do almond shapes, or you can do kind of squiggly S shapes. If you do something like that where it's really squiggly, you might get something that's closer to a fern. So the shape that you draw within this teardrop is really going to determine what type of plant you're drawing or painting, but really it's up to you. Okay, so I want to start from top to bottom. The first thing I'm going to draw is my stem. And my stem is going to be the anchoring point for all of my leaves. My leaves on my leaf, if that makes any sense. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that out with my watercolor pencil, and then draw some organic shaped leaves. So to make sure that my leaf is going to fit, I just want to make sure that my first line goes or ends just before my crease. So I have a crease because I'm making a card. If you're just doing a leaf painting, don't worry about that. Just go to the edge. Not all the way to the edge. I'm leaving about a ½ inch of space on either side. And then I just want to imagine that there's a line from that tip to the center line of my stem, and that will make it so that my lines curve in. Again, you could draw that line and then erase it later if that helps you. Okay, so now that I have my line art completed, I am going to go in with my saffron yellow or sunflower yellow. It's kind of an orangier yellow. It's not quite a bright lemon yellow. So, and I'm going to go ahead and fill in every single leaf with this. And I want it to be kind of wet, kind of watery, because I don't want it to be super saturated and bright. I just want a wash of color. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill in all of these leaves with yellow. So now that it's all yellow, I'm going to be working from the bottom to the top so that my yellow has time to dry. The base is already dry. You can tell because it's a little bit lighter and that it doesn't have any glossy sheen to it on top. So I'm going to take this olive green. If you don't have an olive green, you could just take whatever green that you have and add a little tiny bit of red to it, and it will kind of tone it down, make a muted, more olivey green. So you could also add a little bit of brown, it's kind of similar effect. So what you can do now is you're just going to be shading, and the shading part of this is really fun, and it's up to you where your light source is. My light source is going to be coming from the left, and so my shadows are going to be more intense on the right. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a line of green from tip to tip using my round brush. And I'll show you here what I'm talking about. So if you see these darker lines at the bottom, it just makes it so that your leaf curves away from the light, gives it a little bit more dimension so that your leaf doesn't look flat. So now I'm just going to add my darker green line all the way up my leaf. So I'm just going to go from tip to tip on every single leaf on my right hand side. And you want to make sure that you're doing the bottom of the leaf and not the top, because the bottom of the leaf is furthest from the light, and that's where it's going to be turning. It'll make a lot more sense when this is blended out. But you can even see just adding this one little line is already making it look more three-dimensional, less flat. And I have just a medium amount of water on my brush and in my paint. And I'm doing that because I don't want to start with the most intense color right off the bat. I want to build up to that. If you do have it really dark at the start, you can just use some water after it's dried and kind of feather that out and kind of wash it out a bit so that it doesn't look as intense. So after you have gone over your right side with your green lines, you're just going to go ahead and add some water to your brush. You're not really picking up much more pigment, just water. And you're going to blend that line out. So for this bottom leaf, I really want to blend it heavily because it's going to be the darkest leaf. This is the one that's going to be furthest away from the sun. So I want it to be overall green and not have a whole lot of the yellow showing. So I'm just going to go over it with my water to bring that green that I already have up there all over my leaf. And I'm just going to keep continuing in this fashion, building up color, building up intensity on all of my leaves. And then I'm going to jump over to the left hand side. And the left hand side is a little bit different because I don't want my green to go all the way up to the tip, because I want some really bright, intense areas of sun. So I'm going to go almost to the top of this bottom leaf, and then I'm going to go even less and less on my other leaves. So you can see I'm leaving about 1/2 inch at the top here, 1/4 inch or so, just like a pinky's width of space at the top here. And I'm doing that because I want these tips to look like they are almost turned towards the sun and there's just a lot of intense light on there. And I have quite a bit of water on my brush, that's why it doesn't look as dark as it did on the right hand side. And you really want to make sure that it's just a nice wash. If you have too much paint on your brush, you can feather that out just a little bit with some more water. So I'm popping back over to the right hand side, and you'll see that I go back and forth, and that's because you need to make sure that the work that you've done previously has time to dry. So when you're doing watercolor painting, you can't just start with like a face and finish the face before you work on the body. You kind of have to pop all the way around so that, one part has time to dry in between layers and intensity. You can't really build up watercolors in one stroke. You really have to do it slowly, and that way you get the most payoff without damaging your paper. If I went in really intensely with watercolor straight off the bat, it would be very heavy. I might have to work it into my paper to blend it a lot more, and that will really kind of tear up your paper, depending on what kind of paper you have. So this is also a good time when you're building up color to kind of focus on the tips of your leaves and make sure that you're going all the way up, leaving a nice crisp tip. Okay, so it's about time to drag in a stem, and I'm just going to do this slowly and in little short sections. You could do this in one fell swoop if you're comfortable with that, but I'm just going to show you an easy way. I don't have a lot of wiggle room here where I'm working, so it's hard to really get a nice long line, so I'm just going to do short little lines here. I'm going to start from the bottom, kind of work my way up. Maybe I'll go back up to the top, work my way down. Whatever is comfortable for your wrist and your arm. You could also switch to a smaller brush for this section. Your flat brush would be a really good thing to use for this as well, if you have one of those. And I'm going to do it a little bit wider at the base and a little bit skinnier at the top. And you just want to make sure that all of your leaves are nice and connected. I like to build up a little bit of intensity where it meets the leaf. Just go in a little bit to kind of build where it connects just a little bit darker. Because a lot of times when a leaf connects to a larger stem, there's just a little bit of like almost like a waxy kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's a joint. And I think that would be a little bit darker. So I'm just going to finish this stem, and then I'm going to continue building up my color. So for the final buildup, I'm not adding any water to my cake pan here. I'm just going to work my brush in what's already there if it's a little bit wet. If you're using liquid watercolor, you can use it just right out of the tube to get some nice intensity. And you just want to make sure that it's just damp enough to where your brush isn't dry and like has a lot of breaks in the watercolor. So just the teeniest amount of water. I'm just using residual water from the other work that I've done, and I'm building a nice intense line here. And that's going to be really the final, and that's when you can really build up your tips too, is with this intense dark color. You can just kind of finish and connect a lot of those things, really clean up some line work. So now I'm going to go in with some chartreuse and just add some highlight. Chartreuse is an unnatural kind of color, so I know you can find it in nature, but typically when you're mixing paint, if you just have primary colors, it's going to be really hard to get chartreuse. You can get like a lime green, or you can get a yellow green by mixing more yellow into your green, and that works. But this neon chartreuse, it's very unnatural color. So typically when I'm buying primaries, I will buy a set of just traditional primaries, and then I'll buy a set of neon primaries as well, just so that I can get some more funky colors. So if you need to, just mix a little bit of your lemon yellow with some green. Maybe even a little white to tone it down. If you don't have chartreuse, you know, maybe just use a bright yellow. So I'm just adding a few highlights, really saying that, hey, this is where the light is hitting the most. There's ultra bright sunshine right here. On camera, it's not reading as bright as it is in person. So it is intensely bright in these little areas where I'm adding paint. So So that is the end of this tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you do, please like and subscribe. It helps us out a lot. I made this card for Father's Day, and you can see the difference between using a warm yellow and more of a cool yellow in these cards. So whatever colors you choose, you could add more oranges or reds, or maybe it's a fall leaf. And so that's really cool that it has a lot of flexibility in your style. So I hope that you make a card for someone that you love and care about, and that you try this tutorial. If you do, please send us a photo of it on Instagram. We would love to see it. Have a wonderful day.